Welcome back, each and everyone watching Mama Gagasawa Television. Thank you for being with us. You're going to be with me, Kamika Justin. Now let's kick off with the headlines. Rwanda-Brazil signed trade and investment cooperation deal. RPF Secretary General meets Israel ambassador to Rwanda. On the international news, former DRC Prime Minister Matata Ponyo sentenced after exile. Now let's take a short break to be back on the news details. Welcome back. This is Times in Rwanda. Rwanda and Brazil have signed a memorandum of understanding to establish mechanisms to improve cooperation in sectors including trade, investment facilitation, and collaboration in key sectors. The agreement was signed this Wednesday between the Director General of the Rwanda Development Board, Jagai Africa, and President of the Brazilian Export Promotion Agency, George Viana. The Rwanda Private Sector Forum PSF also signed an agreement with Apex Brazil aimed at improving cooperation between the two parties. Moving ahead, Rwanda Patriotic Front, RPF Inkotanyi, has announced that its Secretary General, Ambassador Christophe Bazivamo, held talks with the Israel ambassador to Rwanda in 8 ways. The meeting took place at the RPF headquarters, according to a statement shared on the party's official X platform. The statement said two leaders discussed issues of mutual interest to Rwanda and Israel, as well as matters affecting the welfare of both countries' population. The meeting highlighted the strong diplomatic ties and growing cooperation between the two nations. In the economic sector, trade relations continue to expand, with Israel companies increasing investment in Rwanda, especially in technology, agriculture, and energy. The discussions reaffirmed the commitment of both sides to strengthening bilateral cooperation. Now, turning to the next story, Rwanda has introduced new regulation governing the licensing and operation of institutions that provide security storage and transfer services known as central securities depositories, as part of efforts to strengthen the country's financial and stock market. The regulations were published in the official gazette on January 16, 2026, and outline the requirements for licensing security depositories and their partners. Under Article 3 of the regulations, no entity is permitted to operate as a central security depository without a license issued by the Capital Market Authority, a move aimed at ensuring that only legally recognized institutions manage critical financial infrastructure. The new framework places CSD activities under public supervision in line with Rwanda's ambition to develop a well-functioning and regionally competitive financial market. Acting CMA Director General Karekezi Ngabonziza said the regulation demonstrates Rwanda's commitment to a secure, resilient, and trustworthy capital market. Now let's take a short break to be back on the international news. Welcome back. On the international news, Augustin Matata Ponyo, who served as Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo from 2012 to 2016, announced that he was brought to justice and sentenced for refusing to work with President Felix Tshisekedi.
On the international news, Augustin Matata Ponyo, who served as Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo from 2012 to 2016, revealed that he was sentenced for refusing to cooperate with President Felix Tshisekedi. In an interview with Jeune Afrique, Matata described his 8-month exile after freeing the country on May 31st, 2025. He used clandestine routes through a neighboring country before flying to Europe. Matata explained that less than a month ago, Tshisekedi's special security advisor approached him, offering to drop embezzlement charges if he agreed to work with the president. He refused, saying he would not give up his honor and accept conviction over compromising his principles. On May 30, 2025, the DRC Constitutional Court found Matata guilty of embezzling $245 million and sentenced him to 10 years of community service. He has not returned to the country since, initially reported as detained, but he confirmed he fled to avoid arrest. Preceding the international news, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer condemned Russia's attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure as barbaric and particularly depraved after strike hit Kyiv and other cities amid temperatures plunging to 20 degrees Celsius. The attack occurred after a week-long pause requested by US President Donald Trump, who spoke to Summer as said Putin kept his word during that period. The strike caused widespread disruption. Over 1,000 apartment blocks in Kyiv lost heating, and the power plant in Kharkiv was rendered inoperable. Residents were forced to shelter in metro stations, some setting up tents to survive the freezing cold. Authorities have opened warming centers and imported generators to cope with extended blackouts. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte urged members country to supply Ukraine with more missiles. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador Kushner and Steve Witkoff are leading peace negotiations in Abu Dhabi, focusing on Russia's demand that Ukraine cede remaining territory in Donbas, the main sticking point in ending the conflict that began in February 2022. Concluding our international news, negotiators from Ukraine, Russia, and the United States began a second round of peace talks in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday, focusing on the future of eastern Ukraine, the main obstacle to ending the 4-year conflict. Ukraine's negotiator Rustem Emlov said Kyiv seeks a just and lasting peace, while Russia insists its troops will continue fighting until Kyiv makes concessions. Moscow demands that Ukraine withdraw from parts of the Donbas and recognized territories seized during the invasion, which Ukraine. Previous negotiations have failed and skepticism remain high. The US brokered talks aim to break the deadlock in Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, though allies want the path to endurable peace is uncertain. This is the end of our international news. This is Mama Gasalo Television.
As we come to the end of the news edition, let's remind you of the top stories that we talked about. Rwanda-Brazil signed trade and investment cooperation deal. RPF Secretary General meets Israel ambassador to Rwanda. On the international news, former DRC Prime Minister Matata Ponyo sentenced for exile. And this marks the end of today's news edition. Stay tuned.